If you want a good looking yard, you got to keep your equipment in good shape. And one of the tasks that you have to do is you have to sharpen your mower blades. Let's get to it. Hey everybody, welcome back to Mrs. RATTLECAN'S house. I am James, and today we're going to talk about sharpening your blades, but I am going to give you a handy dandy tool hint beforehand. You ever seen a socket with a little hole like that? If you'll notice, the stub of your socket wrench has a little ball. And if you line up that ball and that hole, that sucker is not going to come out of there. Also, if you don't line up a ball and a hole, that socket will go off of there fairly easily. So anyways, we are taking the mower blades off of our John Deere riding lawn tractor. And the first thing that we have to do is we have to keep the blades from rotating as we are trying to take the nut off the center of that. And the first thing that we do is we just use the C-clamp and a block of wood, and we tighten that up against the mower deck so that as we are loosening that nut off of there, that will stop the blade from rotating, and then we can't loosen the nut off there. Once we have gotten our blade secured, we can then apply the wrench and pull that nut off of there. Now, pay attention, because if you grunt and groan while members of your family are walking by, you are going to get extra dad points, because not only are you laying on your belly like a snake, you are also making sounds that indicate the tremendous effort that you are going through to make your yard and thereby your family a better place. So lots of grunting, lots of grunting. And after that, lots of grunting. And once you get that nut off of there, there will also be a cupped washer. Make sure that you pay attention to the orientation of that. And then you have gotten your blade, your exceedingly dull, not cutting anything besides butter blade. So let's go over to the other side and get that done. Same procedure, block of wood underneath the deck. That way when you go to pull that nut off of there, the blade will come up against that piece of wood, stop rotating, and then you can use your torquillator and get that nut off of there. Now, on my particular model of John Deere mower, the nut that holds these blades on here is a 15/16 socket, of which I currently do not own. So if you have a 24mm socket, that can work. You can also use a big wrench if you've got one of those. A lot of the socket sets that the starter socket sets that you'll buy, they won't come with a 15/16. So you may have to scrounge around, ask a buddy. If you borrow tools from a buddy, be sure to get them back to him, and I always try to return them with some sort of payment, Diet Coke, Barley Pops, something like that. And voila, the second blade is out. If you've got a 3-blade deck, then you've got one more to go. And here it is, another exceedingly dull blade, which are not really cutting grass at this point. We're mostly just kind of beating the tops of the grass off. You don't get a very nice cut, and honestly, it's not really good for the grass. Now, there are contraptions that you can buy to sharpen mower blades. I find it easier, quicker, safer, whatever positive adjective you want to use. I just use an angle grinder, and I use it with what's called a flap wheel or a flap disc. This is a 120 grit. Anything that spins really, really fast like this, I don't wear gloves around it, because there is the possibility that you could get the finger of that glove caught up in the spinny thing, and then it's just going to drag you into the spinny thing, and life gets exceedingly unfun at that point. So we're all big boys and girls here. You can do what you want to do. I don't wear gloves, and I do wear a face shield, because metal shavings in your eyeball is exactly 0% fun. Now, I try to replicate the angle of the bevel that's on the end of that blade, and that's really easy to do. And I just go through and I continue smoothing that until I get the front edge of that nice and straight. If you have run over things, nails, pieces of rebar, animal bones in the yard, then you are going to have indentations in the front of your blade, and you want to get rid of that. I will grind that down until I feel a burr develop on the bottom side of the blade. I will flip that over in the vise, and then I will take the angle grinder again, and I'm just going to pull enough off of the edge of that blade so that that burr disappears, and I have a nice sharp edge on the front of that. Elapsed time, not very much. We're going to flip it over. We're going to do the same thing, rinse and repeat until you get all four edges of that sharp and burr free. Now, there are camps that are going to stress the importance of balancing your blades, making sure that you're taking the same amount of metal off of one side versus the other. If you are a commercial landscaper and you're mowing 8, 10, 15 yards a day, and you're sharpening your blades, maybe twice a day, then, and you're doing that 5 or 6 days a week, yes, absolutely. If you're just a home gamer, like we are, and you're sharpening your blades once a season, twice a season, 3 times a season, you're probably not going to be taking off enough metal to really make a difference. That's my opinion, and it's worth exactly what you pay for it. Now, here we are a little closer up, and you can see when I pull that flap disc down, it will create a shiny part. There it is appearing right there, where I am now actually removing metal, and you can see the line between the freshly ground area and the area that is not being ground at all. And what we're going to try to do is make that shiny strip go all the way across the bevel of that blade. I don't have a burr on the back end of that yet, so I'm going to continue pulling lightly down there. You do not have to gorilla this thing into that blade. You're just taking very light passes down there. I can flip it and I'll run my fingers on there, and there is a very slight burr on the back of that blade. You just lightly pull that down along the edge of that. I don't have a burr, but it is nice and sharp on both sides. These are not the stock blades that come on my particular John Deere mower. These are Gator mulch blades, and I have had them on riding lawn mowers. I've had them on push mowers. I do not collect my grass clippings except for usually the first and the last mowing of the year. I think it's unnecessary. I think you can put all of that back into the grass. We are not having to regularly dethatch our lawn. I know people will worry about that. We've not had to worry about it at all. I can feel that burr just beginning on the back of it. So once again, we're going to flip it. We're going to pull that burr off the back of that, and then we'll be done sharpening our blades. Now, earlier you heard me mention that you're pulling off a cupped washer. And this washer is not flat. It is kind of dished, and you can see where this 6-inch rule was touching the outer rim of that. If you put it on one side, it will bevel back and forth. It will rock back and forth. If you put it on the cupped side, it doesn't, because it falls away in the middle. So only the outer edge of that contacts your blades. You need to put that cupped side up against your mower. Another tool tip I'm going to give you is about this. This is a torque wrench, and this particular torque wrench goes from 0 to 150 foot-pounds. Let's see if I can get this all blurry. Okay, well that's blurry. Mission accomplished. Let's see if we can get it in focus now. Okay, let's just go back to where we were. You'll notice on the left-hand side, odd numbers. On the right-hand side, it's even numbers. That barrel that I'm twisting goes from 0 to 10. The line in the middle, where it lines up with the vertical line, those are individual pounds. I've just gone from 0 to 2 to 4 to 6 up to 10. You'll notice how these cover the baseline up. If I want to go to 40 pounds, 40 pounds is there. If I want to go up to 50 pounds, there's 50. There's 60. You can see how I'm covering up the bottom line of 60. That is how you set your torque wrench. Mission critical on things that spin around, and if these spinning around things come off, people could die. Look in your manual. Your manual will have a setting on there for certain items like that. Do I really need to know the torque setting to put this little plastic ball on the front, this plastic wheel on the front of my mower deck? Probably not. But things that if they come loose, I could lose a body part, that's when I think it's going to be important. So your sequence for reassembly here is there is a small star-shaped cog, I don't know, shape, fitting, I don't know. I'll put a picture of it here. There's a shape on your lawnmower blade, and then you fix that shape onto the corresponding shape on the spindle. That way it locks it in place, and you don't have horrible things like it helps to keep things in balance, and it helps the blades not to whack into each other. So you have to put your blade on, then you put that cupped washer on, then you put your nut on, and then you screw it down. Now your blade, if you have not moved your clamp, as you can see over on the left hand side of the deck, if you have not moved that, when you start to clamp that down, that blade is going to rotate. You need to be careful, because you have just sharpened that blade, and it will cut flesh. A little more difficulty than it's going to take for it to cut grass, but it will slice you up if you are not careful. So you have been warned. Now, once you have gotten it fairly tight on there, then you can transfer your socket over to your torque wrench, and you can give it a couple of clicks. And what you're wanting to do is, as you're pushing this, when it reaches the set limit, it's going to make a noise. It's going to click, and in this case, it's going to make a big gong noise right here. That click, that means you have reached the torque setting that you have set on your wrench. I usually make it click twice. After that, I'm good to go. So we're going to take the clamp over, flit over to the other side, and repeat. So here I'm going to give you the snail's eye view of trying to do this from underneath the mower deck. Now, it gets to be a little fun if you can't see here. Something else you should do, I'm just going to mention this since we can see it and it's fairly embarrassing, you make sure and you clean the bottom of your deck when you're done mowing. If you're in a hurry, like I've been these past couple of mowings, and you don't, then you get the green goo growing up on the inside of there. And over time, that can break through that paint and start rusting your deck. And that is the no bueno. Now, if you will look at the top, you can see what looks like the cog of a gear. And what I'm going to do is struggle, because Struggle Bus is my middle name. And now I've got the washer with the cupped side up, and what that means is that the part that touches the blade is the outside ring of that washer. And then we're going to get the nut started here, possibly. I'm also doing this on purposely wrong, because do you notice how there is a rounded off section of the nut that needs to be down towards the bottom? So let's get that started. All right, so let's get this started again. So we're just going to start working this on there, and remember, watch the edge of that blade, because the way that it works when you are tightening these up, you are actually pushing into that freshly sharpened blade. So this is where I am trying to rotate it around so that I'm not using it like a cheese grater across the top of my hand. And then the further you get that nut up, you need to wiggle that back and forth so that that blade, see how it is turning that spindle? We are now engaged with that. So now we're going to tighten it up these last few, and we're going to get it to click, and hopefully we're not going to scrape the end of my knuckles off here. Now, we've got it kind of tight. We're going to swap back over to our torque wrench. We're going to give it a big push. Almost. That's what we needed. Now you can go ahead and you can take this wooden block off of there. You can remove any wheel supports that you have. If you have disconnected the battery cable to your battery to prevent accidental discharge, you can do that. Be sure to drop the mower deck on top of your camera, because it's only delicate electronics. And you have now successfully sharpened your blades. Happy mowing from Mrs. RATTLECAN'S house.
If you enjoyed watching this episode of Mrs. RATTLECAN'S house, consider checking out this video. Be sure to subscribe to us on YouTube, and to get the latest updates on our progress, like us on Facebook. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again soon.
Perhaps we should have some wine.